ad break at top of the hour. What's that about? Your socialists are also just as bourgeois as we are. We love capitalism. If you no longer want to see those ads, use Amazon Prime. Connect to your Twitch Prime. Or by getting gifted a sub, if you are lucky. Dude, by the way, that accent is going to be coming back in a little bit when I'm defending the borders of Azerbaijan, a not fictional nation, in a game I call Comrade Border Patrol, CBP. It is the 3-minute ad break now.
Let's negotiate. Moreover, I have also said this publicly before. There was a moment when a certain rift started growing between us. Before that, Yeltsin came to the United States. Remember, he spoke in Congress and said the good words. God bless America. Everything he said were signals. Let us in. Remember the developments in Yugoslavia before the Yeltsin was lavished with praise? As soon as the developments in Yugoslavia started, he raised his voice in support of Serbs, and we couldn't but raise our voices for Serbs in their defense. I understand that there were complex processes underway there. I do. But Russia could not help raising its voice in support of Serbs, because Serbs
Just Gump, thank you for the 20 gifted subs.
Serbs are also a special and close to us nation, with Orthodox culture and so on. It's a nation that has suffered so much for generations. Well, regardless, what is important is that Yeltsin expressed his support. What did the United States do? In violation of international law and the UN Charter, it started bombing Belgrade. It was the United States that let the genie out of the bottle. Moreover, when Russia protested and expressed its resentment, what was said? The UN Charter and international law have become obsolete. Now everyone invokes international law, but at that time they started saying that everything was outdated. Everything had to be changed. Indeed, some things need to be changed, as the balance of power has changed. It's true, but not in this manner. Yeltsin was immediately dragged through the mud, accused of alcoholism, of understanding nothing, of knowing nothing. He understood everything, I assure you. Well, I became president in 2000. I thought, okay, the Yugoslav issue is over, but we should try to restore relations. Let's reopen the door that Russia had tried to go through. And moreover, I said it publicly, I can reiterate. At a meeting here in the Kremlin with the outgoing President Bill Clinton, right here in the next room, I said to him, I asked him, Bill, do you think if Russia asked to join NATO, do you think it would happen? Suddenly he said, you know, it's interesting. I think so. But indeed...
Interesting. Yeah. Weird. Weird to be this like supposedly pro-socialist guy, Red Scare shit, while he's like very openly talking about his relationship with Bill Clinton.
Evening when we met for dinner, he said, you know, I've talked to my team. No, it's not possible now. You can ask him. I think he will watch our interview. He'll confirm it. I wouldn't have said anything like that if it hadn't happened. Okay.
Were you sincere?
It's impossible now.
Would you have joined NATO?
Look, I asked the question, is it possible or not? And the answer I got was no. If I was insincere in my desire to find out what the leadership position was...
But if he had said yes, would you have joined NATO?
If he had said yes, the process of rapprochement would have commenced, and eventually it might have happened, if we had seen some sincere wish on the other side of our partners. But it didn't happen. Well, no means no. Okay, fine.
Why do you think that is? Just to get to motive, I know you're clearly bitter about it, I understand, but why do you think the West rebuffed you then? Why the hostility? Why did the end of the Cold War not fix the relationship? What motivates this from your point of view?
You said I was bitter about the answer. No, it's not bitterness. It's just a statement of fact. We're not bride and groom, bitterness, resentment. It's not about those kind of matters in such circumstances. We just realized we weren't welcome there, that's all. Okay, fine. But let's build relations in another manner. Let's look for common ground elsewhere. Why we receive such a negative response, you should ask your leaders. I can only guess why. Too big a country with its own opinion and so on. And the United States, I've seen how issues are being resolved in NATO. I will give you another example now concerning Ukraine. The US leadership exerts pressure, and all NATO members obediently vote, even if they do not like something. Now, I'll tell you what happened in this regard with Ukraine in 2008, although it's being discussed. I'm not going to open a secret to you, say anything new. Nevertheless, after that we tried to build relations in different ways. For example, the events in the Middle East, in Iraq. We were building relations with the United States in a very soft, prudent, cautious manner. I repeatedly raised the issue that the United States should not support separatism or terrorism in the North Caucasus. But they continued to do it anyway. And political support, information support, financial support, even military support came from the United States and its satellites for terrorist groups in the Caucasus. I once raised this issue with my colleague, also the President of the United States. He says, "It's impossible. Do you have proof?" I said, "Yes." I was prepared for this conversation, and I gave him that proof. He looked at it, and you know what he said? "I apologize, but that's what happened." I'll quote. He says, "Well, I'm gonna kick their ass." We waited and waited for some response. There was no reply. I said to the FSB director, "Write to the CIA, what is the result of the conversation with President?" He wrote once, twice, and then we got a reply. We have the answer in the archive. The CIA replied, "We have been working with the opposition in Russia. We believe that this is the right thing to do, and we will keep on doing it." Just ridiculous. Well, okay. We realized that it was out of the question.
Forces in opposition to you. So you're saying the CIA is trying to overthrow your government?
Of course, they meant in that particular case the separatists, the terrorists who fought with us.
Dude. There you go. You want this? You think this is readable? Okay.
In the Caucasus. That's who they call the opposition. This is the second point. The third moment is a very important one. Is the moment when the US missile defense system was created. The beginning. We persuaded for a long time not to do it in the United States. Moreover, after was invited by Bush Jr.'s father, Bush Sr., to visit his place on the ocean, I had a very serious conversation with President Bush and his team. I proposed that the United States, Russia, and Europe jointly create a missile defense system that, we believe, if created unilaterally, threatens our security, despite the fact that the United States officially said that it was being created against missile threats from Iran. That was the justification for the deployment of the missile defense system. I suggested working together, Russia, the United States, and Europe. They said it was very interesting. They asked me, "Are you serious?" I said, "Absolutely."
Let me ask, what year was this?
I don't remember. It is easy to find out on the internet when I was in the USA at the invitation of Bush Sr. It is even easier to learn from someone I'm going to tell you about. I was told it was very interesting. I said, just imagine if we could tackle such a global strategic security challenge together. The world will change. We'll probably have disputes, probably economic and even political ones, but we could drastically change the situation in the world. He says yes, and asks, "Are you serious?" I said, "Of course. We need to think about it," I'm told. I said, "Go ahead, please." Then Secretary of Defense Gates, former director.
I feel like he wants to be Israel so bad. Like, think about it. Like, if I'm to take everything he's saying at face value, okay, he kind of wants to be Israel. He's like, I want to be America's ally so I can do whatever the fuck I want. And I also want to take Ukraine. I want to expand into Ukraine. Ukraine is mine. I have laid historic claim to Ukraine. Okay. I'm literally your guy. Let me also participate in like this allegiance so I can just be, I can be your roll dog. Do you think you want to be like Turkey? No. Ain't nobody want to be like Turkey.
Of CIA and Secretary of State Rice came in here, in this cabinet, Right here at this table, they sat on this table. Me, the foreign minister, the Russian defense minister on that side. They said to me, yes, we have thought about it. We agree. I said, thank God, great, but with some exceptions.
So twice you've described US presidents making decisions and then being undercut by their agency heads.
Why you hate your own kind? Wait, what? My own kind? Brother, talking about Turks like they're fucking a different species. Holy shit, dude. Least racist American guy.
So it sounds like you're describing a system that's not run by the people who are elected in your telling.
That's right, that's right. In the end, they just told us to get lost. I'm not going to tell you the details because I think it's incorrect. After all, it was confidential conversation. But our proposal was declined, that's a fact. It was right then when I said, look, but then we will be forced to take countermeasures.
He's literally like, dog, why don't you want us to be like your, Russian Israel? We also blow up Muslim populations like all the time. Okay. We love blowing up Muslim populations. Like, come on, dog. Let me be your fucking Israel, homie. What the fuck?
We will create such strike systems that will certainly overcome missile defense systems. The answer was, we are not doing this against you, and you do what you want, assuming that it is not against us, not against the United States.
Why does his simping America make America look kind of weirdly Russophobic? I don't know what you mean by that.
I said, okay, very well. That's the way it went. And we created hypersonic systems with intercontinental range, and we continue to develop them. We are now ahead of everyone. The United
By the way, the interview is now, for me at least, becoming clear. The purpose of this interview is to be as sympathetic to like American Republicans as possible. That's why I said the Israel thing. Like, Republicans love Israel. And he's making Israel-ass arguments without the obvious like religious association that is also profoundly important for the evangelical Christianity side of things. And I feel like he's just trying to be like, look, I'm a small bean. I'm a small bean conservative nationalist. Like, you're a small bean conservative nationalist. Why don't we just like get it together? Because I was trying to figure out like what, obviously he wants to do propaganda, but his line of attack, like what his line of attack, like what his goals are here was interesting to me. And it seems like he's just trying to come across as like rational, reasonable. Don't really even talk about like the atrocities in Ukraine. Don't even fucking talk about what the Ukrainians have done, right? Because like if he was making an argument internally, domestically, if he was making a similar argument to Tucker Carlson about the same argument that he makes domestically, he'd be talking about Ukraine and like how Ukrainians are so violent and so bad, and LPR and DPR has a bunch of Russians that they wouldn't allow to separate. But instead, he's like, I love America. I love linking up and building. And America doesn't want me to link up and build.
United States and the other countries in terms of the development of hypersonic strike systems, and we are improving them every day. But it wasn't us. We proposed to go the other way, and we were pushed back. Now, about NATO's expansion to the east. Well, we were promised no NATO to the east, not an inch to the east, as we were told. And then what? They said, well, it's not enshrined on paper, so we'll expand. So there were 5 waves of expansion, the Baltic states, the whole of Eastern Europe, and so on.
This is why people say I'm a Putin dick rider, by the way, because there are parts of what he's talking about that make total fucking sense, and nothing about like Ukraine being Russian or whatever. But as far as like NATO expansion goes, and that being seen as a genuine threat for Russia, yeah, of course, that makes total sense.
And now I come to the...
Especially post-USSR dissolution, when fucking Russia literally is, in his own words, a capitalist lapdog, like run by oligarchs that sold the fucking country piecemeal to Western banks. So he's like, why the fuck can't we be friends? Is what he's saying. Why are you still propping up NATO? Let me join NATO. Now, I don't know if he's like being serious about joining NATO or not, but he's basically saying like, you're using NATO against me, but I'm your guy, which he was.
The main thing, they have come to the Ukraine ultimately. In 2008, at the summit in Bucharest, they declared that the doors for Ukraine and Georgia to join NATO were open. Now about how decisions are made there. Germany, France seem to be against it, as well as some other European countries. But then, as it turned out later, President Bush, and he's such a tough guy, a tough politician, as I was told later, he exerted pressure on us and we had to agree. It's ridiculous, it's like kindergarten. Where are the guarantees? What kindergarten is this? What kind of people are these? Who are they? You see, they were pressed, they agreed. And then they say, Ukraine won't be in the NATO, you know? I say, I don't know. I know you agreed in 2008. Why won't you agree in the future? Well, they pressed us then. I say, why won't they press you tomorrow? And you'll agree again. Well, it's not.
One thing that I do find very funny is that, like, he's like, oh, well, why don't you put it in writing? This is a thing that, like, Americans also say about Russia, where they're like, well, Russia always reneges on, like, prior deals. Why could we trust them? And it's like, bro, you're America. Like, look at what Trump did with the Iran denuclearization agreement. And that's one of many different instances. We literally have a policy in China called strategic ambiguity, which is just a fancy word for lying. It's a fancy substitute for just lying and saying, no, you don't understand. It's one China. But also, we do believe that, you know, we're going to keep arming and utilizing Taiwan as like a military base, a forward operating base directly into China. So American history, American foreign policy is filled with America writing up treaties or having handshake agreements that they do not follow through on. And the same, of course, goes for Russia as well. But it is ridiculous that we have this like one-sided approach in this situation where we're like, oh, it's only the Russians that violate agreements, when NATO expansion is correct. Like, it did happen time and time again. And it happened after the dissolution of the USSR as well. My opinion on it is that it happened because it is a moneymaker. It's a moneymaker. And Russia's existence, Russia's actions, Russia's existence is a way to perfectly continue justifying NATO and continue expanding NATO. That's it.
Nonsensical. Who's there to talk to? I just don't understand. We're ready to talk. But with whom? Where are the guarantees? None. So they started to develop the territory of Ukraine. Whatever is there, I have told you the background, how this territory developed, what kind of relations there were with Russia. Every second or third person there has always had some ties with Russia. And during the elections in already independent, sovereign Ukraine, which gained its independence as a result of the Declaration of Independence. And by the way, it says that Ukraine is a neutral state, and in 2008, suddenly the doors or gates to NATO were open to it. Oh, come on. This is not how we agreed. Now, all the presidents that have come to power in Ukraine, they relied on electorate with a good attitude to Russia in one way or the other. This is the southeast of Ukraine. This is a large number of people. And it was very difficult to dissuade this electorate, which had a positive attitude towards Russia. Viktor Yanukovych came to power, and how? The first time he won after President Kuchma, they organized a third round, which is not provided for in the constitution of Ukraine. This is a coup d'etat. Just imagine, someone in the United States.
All those sovereign countries shouldn't have the right to join NATO. Hassan Realpolitik Piker. Oh, God, dude. Come on, brother. Jesus Christ. It is literally a fucking protection racket. Stop fucking playing with me. Oh my God. I already ran the top of the hour break if you're trying to fucking do this. Yeah, it's always a voluntary association. Yes, countries want weapons. Okay, they like having guns. America sells them. Okay, America gives them to you when you join NATO. Great. It's still bad. It's also additionally funny because it's contentious with the supposed socialists that claim to be socialist, and then they dick ride NATO. It makes no fucking sense. It is an institution designed to eviscerate socialism and communism. It was directly created. It was directly created to reinforce American hegemony and set up a protection racket, sometimes for valid reasons, but other times specifically to create a self-reinforcing cycle of steady flow of weapons and asses changing hands in that process from Europe back to America and vice versa. Literally hired actual Nazis and actual fascists in every fucking country that it existed in and it operated in, destabilized quietly all of the European nations that it operated in, from Italy to Germany. Well, Germany was a little bit more willing, West Germany specifically, and everywhere else. Okay. And it's like hidden under the guise of, see, this is the problem. Would you consider NATO expansion as colonial conquest? It's not actual straight up colonialism because it's a voluntary military alliance that countries are joining. Okay? You say that, and it's the same as saying, like, well, technically, why is the World Bank and IMF actual imperialism, a continuation of imperialism? How could you say that? Those are just financial contracts. Like, what? I don't really understand it. It's still the same exact fucking way. They operate in the exact same way. If you want to think about it, if you want to understand it, just imagine if it wasn't America doing it, but like China doing it, and then you can maybe recognize that it's not being done with the most honest intentions. Oh, yeah. Just imagine it's like a Chinese deal.
States wouldn't like the outcome.
In 2014?
Before that. No, this was before that, after President Kuchma, Viktor Yanukovych won the elections. However, his opponents did not recognize that victory. The US supported the opposition, and the third round was scheduled. What is this? This is a coup. The US supported it, and the winner of the third round came to power. Imagine if in the US something was not to someone's liking, and the third round of election, which the US Constitution does not provide for, was organized. Nonetheless, it was done in Ukraine. Okay, Viktor Yushchenko, who was considered the...
I don't support NATO. It's just realpolitik. Countries join NATO because it protects them against Putin. Yeah. No, the realpolitik is not that countries join NATO because it protects them against Putin. Well, now they do, and now they can. The realpolitik of it is the same reason why countries have signed on to the Abraham Accords. They want American weapons. That's it. And they also don't want to be an enemy of the United States of America. Because if you're an enemy of the United States of America, you don't get away with shit that Turkey does. That's kind of what he was basically describing when he's saying, like, I want to deal with you guys. I want to deal positively. We're bourgeois as well. Look at us. We're a bourgeois democracy. We liberalized our markets. That's what it is. Look at Turkey. You know what I mean?
The pro-Western politician came to power. Fine, we have built relations with him as well. He came to Moscow with visits. We visited Kiev. I visited too. We met in an informal setting. If he's pro-Western, so be it. It's fine. Let people do their job. The situation should have developed inside independent Ukraine itself. As a result of Kuchma's leadership, things got worse and Viktor Yanukovych came to power after all. Maybe he wasn't the best president and politician. I don't know. I don't want to give assessments.
You are not beating the Russia allegations?
However, the issue of the association with the EU came up. We have always been lenient to this. Suit yourself. But when we read through the Treaty of Association, it turned out to be a problem for us, since we had a free trade zone and open customs borders with Ukraine, which under this association had to open its borders for Europe, which could have led to flooding of our market. We said, no, this is not going to work. We shall close our borders with Ukraine then. The customs borders, that is. Yanukovych started to calculate how much Ukraine was going to gain, how much to lose, and said to his European partners, I need more time to think before signing. The moment he said that, the opposition began to take destructive steps, which were supported by the West. It all came down to Maidan and a coup in Ukraine.
So he did more trade with Russia than with the EU. Ukraine did.
Of course. It's not even the matter of trade volume, although for the most part it is.
Look at Turkey. What? Turkey has its whole eastern border being destabilized by NATO. Nobody's taking anything easy on Turkey for being in NATO. What do you mean? Turkey gets to fucking literally overtake the northern Syrian corridor without a single fucking peep from Western media. Why is that the case? Because Incirlik is a fucking nuclear armed, is an American base with nuclear arms on it. The fuck do you mean? Also, partially the reason why Erdogan gets to talk a big game about how like, oh, Israel this, Israel that, Satan Yahoo, 1 minute, I will fuck you in the ass, all this shit. While simultaneously, there's literal fucking Turkey's doing that to Syria despite NATO. Yeah, you're fucking ridiculous if you think that Turkey's position as a NATO nation doesn't play a role in America not coming down hard on Turkey. Isn't it odd that only NATO-aligned nations are able to engage in such actions? The fuck do you mean? As long as you are an ally to the United States of America, you get away with whatever the fuck you want. You have childlike politics. If you personally do not recognize that, your politics are silly if you don't recognize it. Also, what NATO did in Turkey, ironically identical to what it did in, also aligning, propping up ultra-nationalist fascists like the fucking Grey Wolves against the socialists, the trade unionists, and the communists in Turkey. Okay? So that's another mark for my anti-NATO perspective. Okay? Like these ultra-nationalist fascists that have also been prominent and propped up the Erdogan regime with their coalition there's a direct through line there between NATO involvement in Turkey, obviously nuclear bases being set up, missiles pointing directly on the USSR soil, the Cuban Missile Crisis, all the way to Recep Tayyip Erdogan being able to do whatever the fuck he wants in the region because he's a part of NATO. It's not an accident after the 700th time that America aligns with fascists in their endless endeavor to eradicate socialism.
It is the matter of cooperation ties, which the entire Ukrainian economy was based on. The cooperation ties between the enterprises were very close since the times of the Soviet Union. One enterprise there used to produce components to be assembled both in Russia and Ukraine and vice versa. They used to be very close ties. A coup d'etat was committed, although I shall not delve into details now, as I find doing it inappropriate, the US told us. Calm Yanukovych down, and we will calm the opposition. Let the situation unfold in the scenario of a political settlement. We said, all right, agreed, let's do it this way. As the Americans requested, Yanukovych did use neither the armed forces nor the police, yet the armed opposition committed a coup in Kiev. What is that supposed to mean? Who do you think you are? I wanted to ask the then US leadership.
With the backing of whom?
With the backing of CIA, of course. The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand. We should thank God they didn't let you.
Oh! Yo! He's right. Tucker Carlson's dad is CIA, by the way. Voice of America. God damn. Fucking got his ass. Tucker Carlson's dad is literally CIA. Tucker Carlson wanted to join the CIA. That's crazy that Vladimir Putin just fucking dropped that in the...
With the backing of CIA, of course. The organization you wanted to join back in the day, as I understand. We should thank God they didn't let you in. Although, it is a serious organization. I understand.
That's so funny. Yanukovych's Berkut forces literally shot and killed over 100 people in my
Former vis-a-vis in the sense that I served in the First Main Directorate, Soviet Union's intelligence service. They have always been our opponents. A job is a job. Technically, they did everything right. They achieved their goal of changing the government. However, from political standpoint, it was a colossal mistake. Surely it was political leadership's miscalculation. They should have seen what it would evolve into. So, in 2008, the doors of NATO were open for Ukraine. In 2014, there was a coup, they started persecuting those who did not accept the coup, and it was indeed a coup. They created the threat to Crimea, which we had to take under our protection.
Dude, Russia saying they have to come in and involve themselves in Ukraine because, like, they're being undemocratic to the Russian, like, to the ethnic Russians in the Eastern territories is so funny because it's literally America shit, okay? It is identical to America shit. It's like America being like, yeah, we're going to Afghanistan because they're not treating gay people right. It's what Israel does about their defense of their ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Straight up. And no, for those of you who are dense as fuck, I know there's a lot of people who are horny to like cut anything and everything I say here that even comes across as like even remotely pro-Putin as like a yet another instance where I'm dick riding Putin or some shit. I'm not saying that that's good, okay? I'm saying that that's bad. I'm using America shit in a way in a way that is bad, okay? Objectively bad. It's kind of funny saying it's America shit when Russia has been doing this before white people walked in NA. Yes, but I say it's America shit because obviously in the way that we understand contemporary politics, it's America that does that. Okay? It is a continuation of obviously the oldest colonial trick in the book, which is we are civilizing the barbarians, right? The indigenous forces that we must wipe out and enslave deserve or are worthy of the civilizing force of colonial, the supreme colonial cultures. That's the same thing. When I say America shit, I'm just talking about the same exact continuation of that policy, of that principle. Like Tibet? Yes. Yes, dude. Yes, you're right. Tibetan, like actual Tibetan slaves joining the revolutionary forces is identical to the colonial violence and the enslavement of an indigenous population. Thank you. No, there are differences between a feudal population and the subjects of said feudal population joining the revolutionary forces to abolish the feudal slave-like conditions that they existed under versus a barbaric indigenous population, which, by the way, yes, they had practices that were violent, of course, in tribes and whatnot, getting brutalized in infinitely worse ways by an outside alien superpower. Apparently, Moscow was on fire right now during the release of this interview. Wait, what? Multiple fires being reported in Moscow? Hashtag Tucker Putin? I don't believe that. No, this seems like fucking fake news to me. It's 31. It's got 31 likes. That seems fucking bullshit.
They launched the war in Donbass in 2014 with the use.
Brother, check your mouth. Not all indigenous nations were openly violent. No, man. That's why I said, yes, certainly there were violent practices in indigenous populations, but that does not mean that it was justifiable to enslave all of them. You are so silly. I did not say what you think I said. Just really take a breather before you get
using
mad.
aircraft and artillery against civilians.
Huh.
This is when it all started. There's a video of aircraft attacking Donetsk from above. They launched a large-scale military operation, then another one. When they failed, they started to prepare the next one. All this against the background of military development of this territory and opening of NATO's doors. How could we not express concern over what was happening? From our side, this would have been a culpable negligence. That's what it would have been.
Why so many folks on our dig today? Because I'm watching a massive interview with Vladimir Putin and Tucker Carlson. And there's going to be a lot of like Ukraine watchers who are very hawkish towards me that used to be former fans who then got like, who I was probably very mean to, if I'm being real, leading up to Russia invading Ukraine in a very snarky way, to which I've apologized since then for getting it wrong and even being snarky about getting it wrong, but they haven't given up. It's been 2 years and they still have not let go. They will not let go forever, I'm pretty sure. So they mostly just come in here to look for any and every opportunity that they can claim that I'm actually very much pro-Putin to keep that love affair alive in their own circles. Whereas if they genuinely listened to what I had to say, they would understand that I'm anti-NATO for sure. I've never, I've never missed words on that, but certainly even more anti-Putin. The Moscow fires are real? Oh shit, that's crazy. Of course, that big, like, there was a big split during the Sam Harris Cenk Uyghur 3-hour debate many years prior amongst the progressive left, where there were people who were like, no, I'm actually Islamophobic and it's perfectly valid to be Islamophobic. Okay. Versus the Cenk Uyghur coalition of the left at the time, the online left, the online progressive movement that was like, no, I think we should be like more understanding of Muslim populations and not engage in like such severe acts of violence and destabilization upon them. I think that in my community, a similar split happened in the Russian invasion of Ukraine, where a lot of people that were like, oh no, you're fucking totally wrong and you were an asshole to me. A lot of those people basically became like complete aligned with the United States of America, no matter what they do, with some deviations every now and then, like, but reluctantly pro-American imperialism. Not you, just leftist media in general. I'm so tired of being called a tanky. Yeah. To my shame, I was in the Harris camp back then. I know better now. Yeah. Ironic, because a lot of people who used to be in the Harris camp then turned around from the Sam Harris Islamophobia camp that were anti-Trump for a very long time, looked at what was going on in Ukraine and like kind of took on another more reactionary position that like America reluctantly has to keep being violent and engage in acts of imperialism. That kind of thing. And now that, now they call me a terrorist for interviewing a Yemeni kid who they fucking obviously call a terrorist, an anti-Semite, a slaver, and numerous other things. Still to this day. In spite of the fact that he is none of those things at all. They were very mad that I humanized a person from Yemen when America was blowing up positions inside of Yemen. Oh, and a son of an oligarch as well, which is really funny. But yeah, to answer your question in the most long-winded, convoluted way possible, I think those are the reasons. But once again, I have to ask for charitability as always. Be charitable. Don't be motivated by what you have watched as far as like videos that other content creators have made of me. As long as you are willing to learn my position, I will always tell you I'm honest to a fault in that regard. I don't hide it. I will tell you always, which is why so many people simultaneously hold the position that like I'm doing this to be popular, while also they recognize that it is a deeply unpopular position to hold. Yeah, all the drama lefty said you're pro-terrorist. I know.
It's just that the US political leadership pushed us to the line we could not cross, because doing so could have ruined Russia itself. Besides, we could not leave our brothers in faith, in fact, a part of Russian people, in the face of this war machine.
What was but that was 8 years before the current conflict started. So what was the trigger for you? What was the moment where you decided you had to do this?
We'll get to Biden talking in the White House in like 15 minutes, okay? Once again, though, to all my haters that are in here, I love you, okay? I do. And I hope that one day you will understand my position. Why are you triggered? Wait, what? I'm not triggered. Why am I triggered?
Initially, it was the coup in Ukraine that provoked the conflict. By the way, back then the representatives of 3 European countries, Germany, Poland, and France, arrived.
Biden's trying to steal Pootie Poo's thunder.
They were the guarantors of the signed agreement between the government of Yanukovych and the opposition. They signed it as guarantors. Despite that, the opposition committed a coup, and all these countries pretended that they didn't remember that they were guarantors of the peaceful settlement. They just threw it in the stove right away, and nobody recalls that.
Ukraine is also a neo-imperialist counter-revolutionary project propped up specifically to prevent socialism from spreading in Eastern Europe. Russia is literally acting in self-defense. Putin represents the last bastion for the dictatorship of the proletariat. Is so funny. Because one, he literally started this interview and even his like invasion of Ukraine by shitting on Lenin. Okay. And even in this interview, like 20 minutes in, he was like, we're bourgeois. We're a bourgeois democracy. We liberalized our markets. Why are you guys not letting us kill Muslims? Just like you, we want to kill Muslims alongside you. Please give us money to kill Muslims instead of trying to kill us with this NATO shit. Okay. So the idea that like, dude, it's so sick. Yeah. Vladimir Putin, the eminent upholder of proletarian dictatorship. The only thing he's upholding is the dictatorship part of that, but certainly not at the behest of the proletarian, and more so for what he is, which is an oligarch, and definitely firmly within you know, in the context of being a capitalist. It's a joke? Oh, okay.
I don't know if the US know anything about the agreement between the opposition and the authorities and its 3 guarantors who, instead of bringing this whole situation back in the political field, supported the coup. Although it was meaningless, believe me. Because President Yanukovych agreed to all conditions, he was ready to hold an early election which he had no chance of winning, frankly speaking. Everyone knew that. Then why the coup? Why the victims? Why threatening Crimea? Why launching an operation in Donbass? This I do not understand. That is exactly what the miscalculation is. CIA did its job to complete the coup. I think one of the deputy secretaries of state said that it cost a large sum of money, almost 5 billion. But the political mistake was colossal. Why would they have to do that? All this could have been done legally, without victims, without military action, without losing Crimea.
That's pretty funny. He's like, dude, come on, dog. I can't believe the CIA did military actions in Ukraine. Yeah, all of this could have been done without any deaths is like a really funny thing to say when, you know, you've been pummeling Ukraine, just destroying Eastern Ukraine. Still, all this shit is USA's fault? No, USA involvement only goes USA involvement only goes as far as like the moment that Russia invaded Ukraine. It is entirely, and I've said this time and time again, it is entirely Russia's fault after that moment. America can continue its interest in pilfering Ukraine, okay, in its weakest moment, keep whispering sweet nothings to the Ukrainians that they are going to permanently support them when they don't have that same interest, especially when, you know, another ally is all of a sudden more important because they're doing some genocide, a quick genocide on the side. Okay. But overall, there are a lot of viewers in here who 100% think Putin is right to attack because NATO, US triggered it. Yeah, I don't think that. And I have said this since day one, and I make fun of those people all the time. But you might not know that because maybe you're not in here all the time. I routinely joke about people who push Z or the MAGA communists. I know there's a Biden speech, chat. I know. We're waiting on it. It's not live yet. So what would you have Putin do other than invade NATO after repeatedly cross Russian red lines? Not saying he's right. He already annexed Crimea. What are you talking about? It's Jover. He annexed Crimea. There is no world in which he actually has to fucking invade Ukraine. It's ridiculous. He knows that the Western forces are never going to expand and allow Ukraine into NATO. He knows that. He already took parts of Ukraine, especially parts that are mostly occupied with Russian people in general, because of a prior Russification and relocation of the indigenous Tatar population. Okay. There's literally a Russian base there already. How'd you stop him? So you'd have him annex LPR and DPR without invading? How? No. No, you don't annex LPR and DPR at all. At all. Like, people say that Vladimir Putin invaded eastern Ukraine because of 20,000 mostly ethnic Russians died in LPR and DPR. No, that's just a fucking Putin justification for it. That's ridiculous. How many fucking ethnic Russians have died since then? What are you talking about? Yeah, dude, that was a really good tactical moment for Vladimir Putin. He really saved a lot of ethnic Russian lives in eastern Ukraine when he invaded Ukraine. Come on, dude. I think personally that he greatly miscalculated, maybe due to how easy it was to dominate Ukraine in 2014, when its military prowess was and its military equipment was significantly, I mean, it was nothing in comparison to what it is now. And they were wrong. They were not able to maintain air superiority. They bombed the shit out of even Western positions, and they failed. They failed. He thought that he could do it. He thought he could annex it, which I literally think was impossible regardless. Okay. It was a massive misstep. It was a massive failure. There's a reason why European countries are still very much purchasing Russian gas, for example, through secondary markets. You could have just kept your fucking head down and kept dealing with your European trade partners and just didn't have to engage in like weird hyper nationalistic shit for the purpose of, I guess, like, I don't know, galvanizing patriotic support, not getting outflanked by even more nationalist forces within your country, or maybe because you personally genuinely believe in the fucking hyper nationalist mentality that like Ukraine belongs to Russia. That much seemingly is true. I mean, he's basically saying it. It shows that war against more evenly matched countries, firepower, not manpower, ends up in a standstill. we're too used for big countries attacking smaller and weaker ones? No, because no, you don't understand. If Ukraine was not armed in any way by the UN, or not UN, sorry, by NATO, by America, by Western forces, Vladimir Putin would still not be able to permanently annex the country. This has been my position since day one. That is oftentimes people point to that one tweet about me saying like Vladimir Putin is bad, not mad. He would never invade Ukraine. That would be a fucking major foolish decision. Remember, I never deleted that tweet on purpose. Because I never deleted that tweet because the part that people literally forget is why I said that, which is because it would be impossible for Vladimir Putin to engage in a counterinsurgency. It would destroy Russia. Even without arms being funneled into Ukraine by the thousands, by the billions of dollars worth, okay, old equipment or not, you cannot go against a country with 44 million people in it that have nowhere else to fucking go, that are not going to sit there idly and take it. That's the reason why he was like, oh, it's a special operation. Fuck no, it wasn't a special operation at all. You are wrong twice, actually. He did invade and it yet hasn't destroyed Russia. Brother, if you think that this is if you think that the invasion of Ukraine has been a W for either side, you are huffing on maximum amounts of copium. It obviously is a standstill and the counteroffensive failed in the way that the American government and the Western media presented it at first. It never came to be. Ukraine has hemorrhaged combatants. Russia also has hemorrhaged combatants in this process by a significant chunk. It comes down to a major Russian intelligence failure, which believes there would be far less Ukrainian resistance and far more support among ethnic Russians, which wasn't the case. Yes. I think that they maybe thought that it would be like Crimea, which was ridiculous. I always point to Kharkiv as a great example of an area that was more pro-Russian pre-invasion due to Russian sympathy and ethnically Russian people living there. And look at it now. Ain't nobody is fucking pro-Russia after their entire existence is wiped out, after their homes are wiped out, after their fucking apartment complexes are reduced to rubble. You're not going to be pro-Russia at that point. Ethnic Russian is such a misleading term. Many Russian-speaking cities are mostly pro-Ukrainian. Look at Carlson. Yeah, I don't know how else to communicate that point. Like more sympathetic to Russia. There were areas in eastern Ukraine that are more sympathetic to Russia. The further east you go in Ukraine, the more people used to be sympathetic to Russia. This doesn't mean that they wanted to be invaded by Russia or anything like that. Okay? Clearly, they did not want to be invaded by Russia. They are now invaded by Russia, and look at them. They are not pro-Russia at all. Like, I'm not saying that they wanted to be liberated by the glorious Putin, Vladimir Putin. That's not what I'm saying at all. The point I was basically making is that even those areas that I think Vladimir Putin thought he would be able to easily annex similar to Crimea, he was not going to be able to do so. I'm ethnically Russian hardly makes any sense, because if we're getting into the history like Putin, there are a fuck ton of ethnic groups that aren't in the Russian ethnic group but are native to the land. Yeah. I don't know what the proper way to communicate that would be. To be fair, it doesn't matter what they think. I know people in Mariupol who were pro-Ukraine, but Russia pushed Azov shit in, and now the people are pro-Russia. It's just power imposition. Yeah, okay, dude. Come on. I'm not missing the Biden speech. He's not live yet. Shut the fuck up. Anyway. Yeah, you're convincing me now that this whole thing was a justification to flush out ethnic and political groups not aligned with Putin and solidify his position in nationalistic fervor of those left. Now, I think internally, maybe Putin was a little worried about being outflanked from the right, from other ultra-nationalist forces, but I don't really know. I feel like he's got that shit on lock. But his justifications for invading Ukraine were fraught. It was fraudulent. There is no real justification for invading Ukraine. And I think a lot of people personally that claim that, like, oh, he did it to, like, defend Donbass or whatever are wrong. Like, that's ridiculous. It's like when America says we have to go and invade a place because they're killing women there or something. You know, it's just fucking bullshit. That previous dude is simply wrong. Ukraine destroyed a huge percentage of the Russian army. By the way, for the counteroffensive, you might have heard this somewhere, but NATO U.S. generals told Ukraine to attack in one direction with most of the force being there, but Zelensky was against that, and he decided to do it all across in the front in Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, and Kharkiv. This is one of the generals why Zelensky was fired. Okay. I am at the 50th minute on the interview. We'll keep going until Biden goes on.
We would have never considered to even lift a finger if it hadn't been for the bloody developments on Maidan. Because we agreed with the fact that after the collapse of the Soviet Union, our borders should be along the borders of former Union's republics. We agreed
My
to
Bourbon
that.
Gamer, thank you for the 5
We never agreed to NATO's expansion, and moreover, we never agreed that Ukraine would be in NATO. We did not agree to NATO bases there without any discussion with us. For decades, we kept asking, don't do this, don't do that. And what triggered the latest events? Firstly, the current Ukrainian leadership declared that it would not implement the Minsk agreements, which had been signed, as you know, after the events of 2014 in Minsk, where the plan of peaceful settlement in Donbass was set forth. But no, the current Ukrainian leadership, foreign minister, all other officials, and then President himself said that they don't like anything about the Minsk agreements. In other words, they were not going to implement it. A year or a year and a half ago, former leaders of Germany and France said openly to the whole world that they indeed signed the Minsk agreements, but they never intended to implement them. They simply led us by the nose.
Was there anyone for you to talk to? Did you call a U.S. President, Secretary of State, and say, if you keep militarizing Ukraine with NATO forces, this is going to be we're going to act?
By the way, here's why this is like pure, unadulterated pro-Putin propaganda hour from Tucker. Notice how every single time, including like in the first 30 minutes where Putin was like talking about fucking, I don't know, the history of how every Ukrainian is technically Russian in real life or whatever, he kept trying to bring the conversation back to rails in a way that is like more appropriate for Western audience consumption. That's basically what he's doing every single time he feels like Putin is deviating away. Like he straight up said, okay, but let's talk about NATO. You invaded Ukraine because of NATO, right? While he literally was like, everyone in Ukraine is actually Russian. And I think that we will liberate the glorious Russians that live in Ukraine. He's like, no, but NATO, right? Like NATO. Is there no one that you could talk to in America? What's going on? It's kind of awesome. I won't lie. It's kind of awesome that he gets to be so patriotic, quote unquote, while eating Russia's dick so hard, Putin's dick so hard. I wish I could do that.
Today about their look into my handling of classified documents. I was pleased to see he reached a firm conclusion that no charges should be brought against me in this case. This was an exhaustive investigation going back more than 40 years. Even into the 1970s when I was still a new United States Senator. The special counsel acknowledged I cooperated completely. I did not throw up any roadblocks. I sought no delays. In fact, I was so determined to give the special counsel what he needed, I went forward with a 5-hour in-person interview over 2 days on October the 8th and 9th of last year, even though Israel had just been attacked by Hamas on the 7th and I was very occupied. Was in the middle of handling an international crisis. I was especially pleased to see special counsel make clear the stark distinction and difference between this case and Mr. Trump's case. special counsel wrote, and I quote, "Several material distinctions between Mr. Trump's case and Mr.
He's not
Biden's are
dropping.
clear." Continuing to quote, "Most notably, after given multiple chances to return classified
will he talk
documents
about the part where
to
they say
avoid
he's like
prosecution,
decrepit?
Mr. Trump allegedly did the opposite. According to the indictment, he not only refused to return the documents
They called me
for many
senile,
months,
Jack.
he